Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargav. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. It is generally seen that defaulters and violators often want to have a second go at the companies that they had either managed, mismanaged, or defrauded or cheated. They all look for a second chance. They all look for a second innings in order to own and manage those very companies which have failed for various reasons. With no shortage of NPAs in the country today, there's also no shortage of defaulters and violators. Today, let's talk about whether a defaulter or a violator should be given a second chance or a second innings in order to manage his company, in order to get back the ownership and management of his company. According to us, defaulters and violators can be categorized in two broad categories, which is willful defaulters and non-willful defaulters. Non-willful defaulters, according to us, are victims of unforeseen circumstances. They are entrepreneurs who are willing to invest their life savings and get into business, become entrepreneurs. But unfortunately, they failed or they lost because of circumstances beyond their control. Generally, circumstances in the external environment. It could be that the laws suddenly changed and made their business non-viable. It could be that bankers delayed or defaulted in disbursing loans which were sanctioned to them and their projects never took off. It could also be that the government had promised them some approvals, licenses, etc. and that never came on time. It could be because of political vendetta. It could be because customers did not pay them their dues on time and their money was lost. It could be because of natural calamities. But the fact is that these are generally for reasons beyond their control. Their defaults and violations are bona fide. They did not do it deliberately. And in the process of this, it is generally noted they lost the most. Their companies became poor. They also became poor. And when this kind of a bona fide default takes place, it would generally be wrong to prosecute or criminally punish these kind of entrepreneurs. Their misery is known, it is known to have occurred because they did not cause it. Such kind of enterprises, such kind of entrepreneurs, if they are found to be viable, then according to us, those entrepreneurs must be given a second chance, a second innings in order to manage their companies and hopefully get them back on track. The other category is willful defaulters. Willful defaulters, according to us, are on the opposite side of non-willful defaulters. Their default was deliberate, it was cold-blooded, it was planned. In a very systematic and designed manner, they have defrauded the public, they have defrauded banks, they have defrauded lenders, mutual funds, vendors, employees, suppliers, government, and anybody possible whom they managed to trap. While the non-willful defaulters were victims, the willful defaulters are those who make others victims. They victimize others. They are the predators who set the traps and cheat the others. They are the ones who criminally enrich themselves in a very planned manner. They cheat the public, they cheat the tax authorities, they cheat the PF, ESIC, banks, and any possible authority. In the process of this, their companies become poor, but they become rich. These are robber barons, robber billionaires, and they have become rich in a very illegal and criminal manner by cheating others. The bigger this kind of a default, the bigger this kind of a planned cheating, the bigger is the money that they have made. And for something like this, they certainly need numerous accomplices and colluders, and they are generally the auditors, they are their independent directors, and anybody else who are supposed to keep a check on such cheater promoters, but they fail to do so. These kind of entrepreneurs do not deserve a second chance or a second innings, according to us, for managing their enterprises. They need to be prosecuted, they need to be punished, for they have indulged in the most serious financial crimes. In the past, and we are talking about the pre-mid 95 era, it was generally very easy for these kind of willful defaulters to get away with the loot, to get away with the crime and go unpunished. They had a great time and they managed to enjoy the loot. At that time, Because of weak laws, because of inappropriate and insufficient laws, recovery from these kind of defaulters was extremely difficult, uncertain and expensive. And so it was easy for them to get away with the loot, to get away with the crime. Willful defaulters, by having cheated the banks, had enough money in order to battle their lenders in all kinds of courts and game the system and thus get away with it. And what did they do? They cheated banks. After that, they tired them in courts. Then they indulge in one-time settlement of their loans with the banks at a fraction of the amount. They got a huge haircut, and in doing so, they continued to be in charge of their companies. They were never divested of the ownership of their companies. They were never deposed or dethroned. And they continued to be the managers, owners of those companies through whom they had looted the banks. This was a very time and tested formula. Then in the mid-90s, we had the onset of the DRT. The debt recovery tribunals were meant to stop this, but they couldn't. And that's because the willful defaulters, the entrepreneurs who were rich enough, they managed to take back their companies through the route of the ARCs. It was through the ARCs that they settled their loans with the banks, and thereafter in a very stealthy manner through a backdoor entry, they got their companies back. In other words, they got a second chance, a second innings in order to manage, own their companies despite having cheated and looted the system, the banks and the public in particular. This not only condoned the criminal, but it also perpetrated the crime. When the IBC came, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Court came, one of the objectives was to prevent this model of this time-tested formula of cheating banks, which is cheat, settle at a discount and continue to own the companies. These kind of defaulters were meant to be dethroned and the companies were meant to be divested of them. The classic case here was that of Essar Steel. The Ruias defaulted on bank loans. After that, they offered to settle those bank loans at a discount. The banks refused, and then in the meanwhile, the ArcelorMittal group got into picture in order to take over Essar Steel. When the Ruias saw that now they had a very formidable competitor for their own company, they increased their offer to settle with the banks such that they finally were willing to repay every rupee to the bank and probably more. So desperate they were to take back their company. But the IBC prevented it. The Ruias went to every possible court in this country, right up to the Supreme Court. They lost, and finally we had ArcelorMittal taking over the company. The fact is that the Ruias were trying this very scheme of default, cheat the banks, do not pay the full amount, settle at a discount, and continue to own and manage the company. They were wanting a second chance, as we call it, a second innings in their company after having defaulted on their bank loans. The IBC proved to be a bottleneck in this. It prevented them from doing that. Despite these provisions of the IBC, we very often notice that promoters do want to regain the control and ownership of their companies. They want a second chance, a second innings in the ownership and management of their companies. From time to time, these cases keep surfacing. And at the moment, the prominent companies and promoters where the promoters are seeking a second innings, a second chance to manage their companies are those of DHFL, Videocon and Jet Airways according to us. In all the three companies, there have been massive defaults in repayment of loans to banks, lenders and the public, and the promoters are keen to take back their companies. Take the case of Diwan Housing. Diwan Housing owes over 90,000 crores to banks. It also owes thousands of crores to depositors, and the company has defaulted. A forensic audit conducted said that its promoters, led by Kapil Wadhwan, they have indulged in massive siphoning of funds, in massive cheating of funds from the company, money laundering, and also dealing with the underworld. Those are the serious charges against them. The siphoning of funds is estimated to be about 35,000 crores by the promoters of DHFL, and its promoter Kapil Wadhwan is in jail at the moment. The company has been referred for the IBC process to the NCLT, and many investors have come forward to take over the company. But the maximum offer that they are making is 20,000 crores. That means over 70% of bank loans are bound to be written off. At this time, Kapil Wadhwan from jail makes an offer. He says that he is willing to put in his personal assets of 44,000 crores in order to repay banks, gain control of the company and come back in the saddle. Of course, that also helps the promoters big time, because by doing that, for all you know, all the criminal agencies who are investigating DHFL and its promoters, which include SFIO, CBI, Income Tax Department, Enforcement Directorate and SEBI, all those investigations might perhaps come to a halt once the original promoters are back in saddle. And of course, for these reasons, they want a second chance. They want to regain the control of the company. The second case is of Videocon. Videocon Group owes over 31,000 crores to banks. Its promoter Venugopal Dhoot has been mentioned in the Chanda Kochar case on charges of corruption, cheating and criminal conspiracy. The group owes over 31,000 crores to bank, and its promoters have offered to settle all these loans to banks by the year 2035. That's the kind of period they are asking, and for that they want control of the company back. They are also under investigation by all kinds of agencies, and by regaining control they will get a second go, and perhaps all the investigation into their criminal conduct will come to a halt. That's the case of Videocon. In the case of Jet Airways, what we are noticing is, while its promoter Naresh Goyal has not been making direct offers of late, but a number of front entities have been reportedly doing on his behalf. Those entities earlier were based in India, then UK, then UAE, then Brazil, then Russia, and now it seems that a person from the UAE has offered to take over the company, and his offer has been accepted by the banks very quickly. According to us, it looks like that this is Naresh Goyal's front trying to take back the company, and in his case also there are investigations going on by all kinds of agencies. Perhaps those will come to a halt. So we have these recent cases of promoters seeking a second innings in their own companies that they had defrauded and looted and taken as a vehicle to loot the public at large. According to us, if these shady, dubious and criminal promoters are given a second chance and a second innings in order to own, control and manage their companies, then the larger picture, according to us, that it is a sheer mockery of the law of the land. It condones the crime, it pardons the criminal, it also permits the criminal to enjoy the loot that he took away in a criminal and illegal manner. The criminal goes scot-free, so do his accomplices, and in all this, it is the public that will lose. The public will lose financially, the public will also lose its faith and trust in the law of the land, and that cannot be afforded by a country. Imagine in this manner pardoning and giving a second chance to the likes of Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, Mehul Chokshi, Ravi Parthasarathy, Sandesh Saras, etc. You have let them loot and you have let them come back. Just not acceptable. And then if you are okay with these kind of promoters coming back to run the company, then why not give a second chance to their accomplices on the other side of the table, which is the likes of Chanda Kochar, Rana Kapoor, etc. We think the likes of DHFL, Jet Airways and Videocon cannot be permitted to let their promoters come back and take a second go at their own companies, which were actually vehicles to cheat the public. This is Akhilesh Bhargav signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.
If you like this video, please share it, and we would love to hear your comments in the comments section down here. Also, please do like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter to get minute-to-minute news updates. For more such shows and videos, well, subscribe to our YouTube channel.